Here.
Commissioner Shen.
Present.
And I'm here. And I'm assuming that Mila will be here shortly. All right. Any changes to what we've got going here? Anything? No? All right. Hi, Ann. Welcome. What is it, 3 minutes? Mm-hmm. So all the public comments are 3 minutes, and just so you know, I didn't know the first time I made one of these, is that we're not allowed to respond because anything that we say that's here has to actually be on the agenda. So we'll kind of acknowledge your comments, and for the course of the meeting, that's what we can do.
Okay, is there any chance that somebody could perhaps contact me later?
Sure.
About what
Yeah.
you think about what I say? Or is it just going to go through your 1 ear and out?
No guarantees either way. Give us a shot.
This is ready. Okay, so it's on? Yes. Okay. My name is Ann Pianetta, and I've been a resident of Palo Alto for about 60 years. And I understand your purpose as a commission is to help select and promote public art in the city. I would have to say that most of the artwork is nice and interesting. However, there are some pieces like the car with legs at Jerry Bowden Park and other pieces on California Avenue that I can't stand seeing over and over again. No offense, it's just my perspective. And I like more representational art than other kinds. But I do appreciate some modern art. I have a suggestion to improve the use of public art in Palo Alto, and that is instead of purchasing art pieces, why not designate different locations around Palo Alto and lease these spots to local artists for a specific time period? The city could include insurance with the rent, or the artist could insure his or her piece and then show their talents to the community for a specific time period. This way, the people of Palo Alto could have interesting rotating art exhibits, and local talent could have their information included by the art piece. This way, we can avoid bad art for long periods of time. And so I mean, to me, I see that you're all really excited about these blue trees, but I think it's just a desecration of a tree. I don't appreciate it. I think it's hard on the tree, even though the guy says it's probably okay. But I don't know, I just like looking at trees the way they are. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you. So we will not go unresponded to. Let's figure out which of us will follow up, and I'm happy to, or one of the other commissioners can. Okay. We're happy to kind of have a conversation. I think a healthy conversation with the community about art. Some people like stuff, some people hate stuff, and that's part of the deal.
You got rid of the baby's face and the...
Thank you for coming
yeah.
to speak.
Yeah, exactly.
Thank you, thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, just an email or something would be great. Okay. Can everybody have a quick look at the minutes from last time, if you haven't done so already? I motion to approve.
I move.
You second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, we are approved. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, so for staff comments, the first item up is, of course, the blue trees, which were just completed this morning. The event last night drew between 40 and 50 people, and we had...
You guys made it. I did not.
I did not make it. So sorry. But we had representatives from Canopy who also spoke, and of course, Walter Passmore, our urban forester, spoke. So it was really interesting to hear Con talk about his sort of larger vision and how he kicked off this project and the inspiration behind it. And having done this all over the world, he shared images on a rotating screen behind him. And then Canopy brought it more regionally and talked about some of the local efforts that we could all volunteer and get involved with to assist. And then Walter brought it a little bit more central to the city itself. And then the bluegrass band played, and it was really fun. So we had a good time with that. What we found with the Blue Trees volunteer efforts was that the volunteers worked very hard. The trees went a little faster than we anticipated. And we had volunteers who walked up and just were so excited and they wanted to get involved. And people who signed up for one day who came for multiple days. So we do carry a little bit of guilt for those who volunteered later in the week and didn't get the opportunity to do so. But we weren't going to slow down the progress. Everybody was moving. So we do apologize to those who didn't get a chance to work on it, but you can see great fun was had by all.
Question about, was there prep to the trees, or did they just really just start?
No,
Okay.
it's water-based. It just goes right on. And so the next item I have is that we have identified an intern who will be starting work with us probably in the next 10 days. Her name is Angira Kadka, and she is a graduate student at University of San Francisco in Museum Studies. What's particularly interesting about her is that she's been interested in very site-specific installations and been following these installations as they go outside the museum. So she's been really interested in these very localized public art installations in parks and things like that. So it's really led her to public art. So we're looking forward to working with her. She has quite a bit of a background in handling collections as well. And so she'll be doing a lot of the research on platforms to get the mobile out there. So we're looking forward to working with her this summer. And the next item is that there was a selection for the next public art commissioner who will fill Commissioner Zelka's chair. And his name is Ian Klaus. He is a non-resident senior fellow at the Chicago Council on Global Affairs and an advisory board member for the World Economic Forum's Future of Urban and Development Service. And so we're really excited to see him bring that perspective and that energy to the commission, and his term will commence June 1st. And then finally, of course, we want to thank outgoing Commissioner Mila Zelka for her amazing service and wonderful voice. And
Sorry, I can't stay on. The timing doesn't work for me, but it's been really an honor to serve.
so that's it for staff comments.
Okay. All right, so we have a few things here. The first of which is the artist in residence for the Baylands.
So as you may recall, in the Public Art Master Plan, it was called out that that corridor from the 101 going toward the Baylands is a significant corridor. And there are a number of buildings there that will likely be redeveloped in the coming years and have an opportunity to commission art on site or contribute to in lieu. And part of the thinking there is that by having a public art overlay plan for that area, we could potentially incentivize some of those developers to pay in lieu to contribute to something that will be of benefit to the corridor and more cohesive than having a sculpture plopped in the front of each of those buildings. And so with the Baylands Comprehensive Conservation Plan underway, it was a unique opportunity to bring in an artist, to engage that group, to expand their definitions of what public art means, but also to create this public art overlay. And so in January, the Public Art Commission approved the $10,000 in conjunction with the Baylands Comprehensive Plan Public Art Overlay. The RFQ went out in March. We did artist walkthroughs shortly thereafter. We had 8 really amazing applicants. We came down, there were 2 that really stood head and shoulders over everyone else. And the top 2 candidates were interviewed today by Parks and Open Space staff, myself, and Chair McDowell. And both of these applicants would have been amazing. But we do have, now I'm struggling for their
Mary
for their
O'Brien.
names. Yeah, so Daniel McCormick and Mary O'Brien is the artist team that we're recommending to the commission for this project. And I'm not gonna go into depth on their projects, but we just wanna scroll through some of the types of things that they've done. And have a lot of experience in involving community, so all of these are very, involve a lot of community volunteer hours to create them. And they've had a lot of success in bringing some wildlife back very quickly, like unanticipatedly so. Like before they left the job site, there were birds moving into some of those projects. But the feeling was that they would be a good fit for those BCCP stakeholders, be able to do something that would be helpful and meaningful with, in the Baylands area. And they also have the master planning experience to be able to recommend types of artwork in various settings. And did you want to add anything to that, since you were part of
Sure.
those interviews as well?
It was a really interesting discussion with both artists. The second artist that I recommended that we go with are, if you see from some of the pieces, some of them look like swales or berms, and I asked them the question, do you think of this as art with a capital A, like putting art in the context of nature, or do you think of this as something that is more part of the context directly, art maybe with a smaller a? And they sort of blew up my construct and said, well, we think of it as ecological art. And that is art that is constructed not with things that you bring that are going to last forever, but things that will eventually, decompose, but that serve the environment to kind of heal different things. And they gave a bunch of different examples of places where in West Marin they had these lovely cows that are grazing around. Well, the cows are pooping everywhere, and the nitrogen leaches into the streams where the salmon spawn and screws everything up. And so these guys came up with a way to do some, what do you call these, berms that would keep runoff from going into the streams, and ways to kind of work with the ranchers to keep the cows away from the streams. And they had a lot of different examples of things like that, where if you look at some of the pieces and think, well, it's beautiful, but is it art with a capital A? And you wouldn't look at it and say, oh, this is what it is. That's part of the reason I think it's appropriate, but having attended, at Lisa's encouragement a little while back, one of the meetings with the people that are involved in the Baylands, they're very, very concerned about anything that would disturb the nature that's there, and the wildlife habitats that are really fragile. And so I think that it's better to weigh more on the side of people that are, or have this more of an ecological orientation than someone who may do something beautiful, but maybe a little bit more disruptive. And they were very much scientists and looking at the data and how do we understand what's happening in these different ecosystems. And they'd spent time at the Baylands and weighed in about a number of different concepts. So I think that they will be, I think they'll do something that is good for the Baylands, kind of independent of art, and that also will be beautiful. And they'll be good collaborators, which I think is this notion of the artist in residence. This, I just want to comment, can you go back to this? So this is very interesting. These pieces are intended to be kind of grounding for what becomes oyster beds. And the alternative to some of these things are these gigantic concrete mounds that they drop in the bay. Right. So these are actually dredged up parts of the bay from the time when they used to do underwater mining. And they just left all this junk at the bottom of the bay, and these guys dredged it up and then formed these different mounds. So it's kind of part of the bay, and they created this piece, which is, I don't know that it's objectively gorgeous, but I think it's more pleasant to look at and more organic feeling than some big concrete thing.
Yeah.
So I would wholly, without reservation, endorse these guys. Nadia, you want to add anything?
Did I see that they're installed somewhere in Los Altos? So can we go see
Adobe
something?
Creek, they restored. Adobe Creek.
Okay. And what's the name of this artist again? Can you put that back up?
It's Mary O'Brien and Dan McCormick?
Daniel McCormick
Daniel,
and,
yeah.
and Mary O'Brien.
Yeah. And they're from Fairfax, they're like local folks.
And part of what they said, because I'm not sure how much you'd be able to see in Los Altos, is that, there is the aspect of their work that it does disappear over time, because as it's successful and things grow and thrive, that workmanship sort of gets buried and disappears, but they see that as a successful piece rather than a sculpture that you want to preserve and cut back everything. So it's a completely different mindset, but wholly, we feel appropriate for this artist in residency.
Making of a pearl.
All right, I'm going to make a motion that we approve O'Brien McCormick.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you.
All right, the deaccessioning of some of our utility boxes.
So, this is an item that, there were 10 utility boxes that were, from what we can tell, were never intended to be permanent. They were primarily funded through utilities funding in the amount of $5,000, and the Public Art Commission contributed $500. At the time, the agreement between utilities and the Public Art Commission was that, as soon as they don't look good, they get tagged, they're obsolete, they have to be moved, or 4 years is up, that they should be able to do so. Well, these have lasted much longer. And we coded them once, graffiti coded, for $1,200. So that's the extent of the funding that's gone toward it. However, what's happening now, you may have noticed the construction on University and various corridors in downtown. It's part of a major infrastructure and street improvements, upgrades taking place. And as part of that, they're putting in new utilities cabinets, and these are completely obsolete. So in 2016, they actually did some work and removed 4 of the cabinets, which unfortunately we didn't find out about till after the fact, which is not something we love to have happen. But we did notify all of the artists via email at that time that this was going to be happening, that they were going to be removed between 2016 and 2018. And that there would be a more formal deaccession. Well, we were waiting until the deaccession policy came around, and this wasn't on our radar screen until they started breaking ground again. And hats off to our utilities and transportation people. They did call us and say, we need to remove these in the next couple months. And so I said, we'll go ahead and move forward with the deaccession process because they need to remove them, but they were going to set them aside if they need to be photographed for any of the artists for any reason. I'm still uncertain as to why they were assigned accession numbers to begin with, but they are. So we need to follow the policy and go forward with the formal deaccession of all 10 of them, even though there are only 6 remaining.
Exactly.
What happens to the boxes?
They have to be returned and disposed of in a particular way by utilities. I'm not sure if they're lined with something, I don't know the particulars, but we were told they need to go back for proper disposal.
So I happen to really actually like them, and I would not want to see them deaccessioned. So here's my question to you is, if we were to keep them, how could we potentially move them and put them somewhere else? Is that a possibility?
I really don't know. We were told that they need to go back to utilities, and that they can't be sent out to the artists or anything else. So I'm not clear if there's.
Not to the artists. So like if we kept them in our, we said the utilities, look, we're willing to keep them and we're willing to figure out a way we would like to keep them in our collection. We'd like to keep them visible. They wouldn't be specifically the functioning utility boxes, obviously. But I think it would be really a great idea to use them as art. And whether it's moving them, I guess it seems like, are we not allowed, since it's now part of our collection, technically we should have the right to do what we would like with them, correct? Or is that not the case?
I think once they cease to function as utility boxes, they need to go back to utilities for proper disposal, is my understanding.
So I would like to kind of push back and say, is that really the case? And is there any way that we can make an exception?
It sounds like through this process, looking at part of our policy about whether, number 4, whether the artwork poses a condition that's a threat to public safety, I think that's where, in the process, the public utilities would tell us, we need to dispose of this.
Right, but they haven't told, I mean, from what I'm hearing, I guess they haven't told us specifically. So my question is it that, could we do something where we take it, like, remove the inside or whatever, so we have the physical, the outside exterior, the shell? Or, so I would like more information, because I don't want them to actually be disposed of personally.
And I understand that, but we're not talking about giving the interior over. We are talking about the shell of the box, and we were told those they can't travel elsewhere, that it's the shell of the box that has to be disposed of by utilities. We're not talking about the electronics.
Okay, so so what you're, just, maybe I'm not clear. So what you're saying
box.
is they told you that it's a threat.
They told us that they have to go back to utilities for disposal, that they can't be turned over to the artists or anyone else.
But that's, I'm sorry, but that doesn't quite answer, I guess, because I feel like the fact that it's out here now, still out here, if it was a problem and a health issue, it's what it's sounding like to me, and maybe I'm misunderstanding, is that they say, like, we need to take them back. They're not saying that we can't put them in another place and display them. Does that make sense? Like, it would be, I feel like I need to hear the words, like they said, they're not safe to be in I'm not asking to return them to the artist. I'm asking, can we keep them in our collection and display them?
Can I ask a clarifying question? Who is they? Is it
public
utility?
The utilities. So the
Company.
Utilities Department reserve the right to remove or return the infrastructure to its original condition after 4 years or sooner, should the equipment fail or become outdated, or the artwork get vandalized or faded. In this case, it's outdated and it's being removed. So,
Personally, it doesn't answer. I mean, I think I personally would like to hear more information as to
So
really
it's-
if
it's
it's
a-
outdated.
It sounds like
So it's like-
if I don't think there's a risk. I think there's like a normal, the guy or the gal that runs the utilities says, okay, these boxes are done, it's their end of life, we take them back. I think if you raise an interesting question, that is like, okay, is the shell a harmful thing in and of itself, or is it the kind of like our benches, where the guy took these old, gas tanks and repurposed them into benches?
Right.
So you're asking the question, is there something we might do as to keep them as part of our collection? I think that it's worth asking. I mean, and so maybe we table this to next month,
Okay.
and say, hey, guys, if we wanted to, is there something we could do with the shell? Now, that begs the next question, what do you want to do with these? Like, I think it's like we don't,
I mean, I think it's something you can move them. I don't know the cost. It depends on the cost, but I think there is a possibility you could try to place them other places. I don't think
So
there's an issue,
independent-
but my question would be, are
Let-
they
let-
okay with that?
Let's talk it through like
Yeah.
a bit further to kind of see how it would work. So
Yeah.
if it's just the box itself, it's not
Mm-hmm.
like the post, so you need somewhere to mount it, or maybe it sits on the ground, like, let's sound it out further.
Yeah.
I agree with you, I think that they're nice, and if there's something that we could do with them, bearing in mind, like, okay, we have limited space for storage, like, let's say they say yes, so we have to put them somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and then where are we gonna site them? And I think it's a fair thing and ask, like, if you think it's important, think where are places you might want to cite them, and what are other possible uses, and maybe talk with staff. And if you guys come up with something for the next time around, then okay, then maybe we vote to do something. And if you can't, then I would say, okay, we have the same discussion we're having now, and it's kind of like they take them back and, I don't know, they melt them down and turn them into roller skates. I don't know, whatever they do with them.
Well, here's my thinking. I think we could look into polls, perhaps, or we could have them. But I think a lot of them, if you actually look at them, they have some really interesting meanings, some of them.
Yeah.
And that's why I feel like it would be interesting I would be even happy, I actually happen to know one of the artists, and I didn't realize that was hers, but to 20 years, it's probably now 10 years ago, what was the purpose? Because these are all really, I think they're very interesting
Yeah.
talking points. And I
Right.
think it's one of those things, I'm personally passionate about trying to get our community more involved in art. And this is one way that we can help, encourage, let people know that, that we're trying as the commission not always to just bring in artists. We're trying to use our community
Okay.
and build on their
Can
artists.
we table this one for next time?
So,
Or it sounds like we need a motion.
All right, do we need a motion, or do we have to vote?
You would need a motion to table it,
Okay.
or to take a vote one way or another, or
Okay.
something.
So,
Are there complications with delaying it with 1 month? Does this impact construction in any way?
Well, they're
They've
gonna-
already been removed?
They will be removed
the next
before
step,
then,
yeah.
and they're struggling with storage space. So they were trying to identify a place to put these 6 boxes for a short period of time, but that's a challenge.
They're, you know,
There's one across the street.
It's like this, it's like a little phone booth kind of.
seems like a big excuse, but it's my personal.
Go ahead.
I'm just following the logic through here, right? So I'm asking staff that if, without the merits of doing something with it later, just the logistics, does this hold up something right now that has nothing to do with public art, like infrastructure projects? Is the art at jeopardy if moved? Like, because not just storage, but transport, how it's taken down. Like, what are all the, I don't even know what all the considerations are. You said at one point you guys put a layer of coating over it that was anti-graffiti. Do we need to treat it before it gets moved so that we protect it? Should we want to do something with it? I mean, there's some, probably, I'm anticipating some care, but I'm not an expert on this.
My guess is they're not gonna be handled so preciously. You know, they're gonna be deinstalled, they're trying to get through this project as quickly as possible. We're trying to find a space where they could potentially be held for a short period of time until we run through the 90 days. And that's about as much runway as I've been able to get.
So it's still, I'm still on the fence with it, but I do have one other question. Could this happen again in the future? Is this something we should steer? I mean, this sounds like now as much as I really want to would love to see something like this reinvented again. The possibility would be, could we do something, if we were to say, okay, they can take these. Like, if we were to say in the future, we'd love to have more decorated booths or whatever, I forget, sorry, what they're
Utility
called.
boxes.
Utility boxes. Like, could we do it again? And what would what if we did like a temporary, rotating every 4 years, like, I don't know.
I think they're gonna go, you're the same issue. Ultimately, it's not our thing, like, it's a
But
mural.
they gave us an accession number, so that's technically, like, they put
Well,
it
that was
in,
something that
right?
some of our staff did earlier. It's not that someone else did.
Okay, so that
But-
means that if it's something that we could potentially go back and to the utilities and say, we love this idea, like, we're willing to, like, is this something that you would consider us doing in the future with your new?
Can you read the language again? Because I think it's pretty
Boxes.
specific about what happens to these things after their useful life is done. And so knowing that in the future, it's the same issue.
No, that's okay, but as long as we know that it wouldn't be in our collection, so we wouldn't have to worry about the accession, and we could just say every 4
Right,
years.
If we did this again,
Right?
we would not have it be permanent. We would most likely do it as a translation of a vinyl onto a utility box,
And
which
would they be willing to do that?
potentially on
question.
some boxes. The problem has been that staff bandwidth, to take that on as a whole separate project, we have not been able to get there.
I have one more question. If we take time to table this for a month and therefore not start the deaccession process, does that then cut into the amount of time that staff has to contact the artists and the relatives of the one deceased artist to find out whether they're going to be a legal, like if there's legal ramifications? Because you said you contacted the artists last time around.
We did
But-
as much as we could in 2016. Many of them just were not responsive. One is deceased. I think a couple of them, I guess Nadia.
Does that cut into the time that you guys need to do your proper due diligence so that we don't have legal liability?
It defers that 90-day clock, because as it is today, what we were asking for is the initiation of the de-accession process, that we would come back in June.
Okay.
And then June would kick off that 90 days.
Okay, so that's very, so I misread this. This is just the
Yeah, that's-
initiation of the process. This isn't de-accessioning. So
Right.
I don't want to spend too much time on this. I move that we de-accession, to initiate the process, and then we have
Okay.
90 days to figure it out. So
And the item would
s-
come back, just to clarify, would come back in June for a vote to de-accession or not.
Yeah,
I second that
all in favor?
motion.
Aye.
All against?
Aye.
Okay.
Okay.
But during this 90-day period, you can go and find out.
We'll vote again in a month to,
And get more information.
Right.
all right, sorry, I feel like we spent a lot of time on that, my fault.
But can I just want to I know we're over, that's fine. I just want to say with commissioners, I want you to know that I really, one of the things, like, I feel that is missing in this, in our public art is some work by our community. So I hope that you guys will think about ways that we can do something like this in the future, because I feel like we are constantly always focused on external artists from our pool. And I really feel like if we want to remain a really vibrant, unique community, I think we also have to utilize our talents in our community, which we sometimes, I feel like, are not doing. So.
Also, I think that you have to recognize also that what we do with CASP, and I don't know, I think it's a longer discussion, but, and it's, we're a little bit off topic, but I hear, like, yeah, for the community, we want to engage as much as possible. I think that in terms of the mission, bringing high-quality art is, I think it's contextually specific. For something that's utility boxes, great. For something that is, Patrick Doherty, if we're picking one or the other, I'm picking Patrick Doherty. All right.
He actually is a good example because he engaged community.
No, I think she's talking more about having actual
Right.
artists from
I
here.
understand what you're saying.
Okay, the next item is collection maintenance, approval of funding in the amount of $6,000 for the conservation treatment of Universal Women.
I don't want to get
Universal Woman is a very special piece by Nathan Oliveira. It's sited at the Arts Center Sculpture Courtyard. And it was actually, he always had this vision of doing this 8-foot woman. And it took a long time for him to finally realize this vision. And he created her, and the first place she was exhibited was actually at the Arts Center. And she was on loan to the Arts Center for a long time until it closed for renovation. And after Nathan died and the Arts Center was reopened, the family of Nathan Oliveira donated the piece to the public art collection, which is a very generous gift. The piece has not received any treatment since it arrived, and his son has been checking up on it periodically to make sure, and we ask him, like, does it need anything? Does she need anything? Well, now she's due for a wax treatment. So I believe it's been 3 years. Yes. So,
Sorry, I just got a little funny. That had to go. Oh, my God.
goodness, everyone. Anyway, so she's due for a little wax treatment. And so I think Nadia can fill you in a little bit more on the estimates we have.
Sure. So we reached out to a number of local conservation specialists who specialize in treating bronzes, and obtained 3 quotes that range between $3,000 and $6,000. For the same type of treatments, same scope of work. So staff will proceed with the treatment to be performed in June. It's a 1-day treatment that will involve a thorough cleaning of the sculpture, of the debris, and any cleaning of the patina surfaces, and then treating the sculpture with hot wax. So it's a full day, 1 treatment that involves 2 professionals, a conservator and a technician.
Eyebrows and lips. I couldn't resist. It's very.
Universal is beautiful.
It is
I
beautiful.
just have a question, so how long is this treatment good for?
Yeah, about every 3 years, right?
Yes, yes. So 3 to 4 years, depending on, just conditions
Sun
and
and wear and tear.
precipitation, yeah.
And so the wax is a protection against the natural, got it,
It helps protect the bronze.
thanks.
I understand and I will appreciate that we need to do this. My question would be, are there any other pieces that could use some waxing that maybe if we do several at one time, would it help? Would it make sense? I'm just throwing it out there.
Most of the other ones don't involve this detailed and difficult waxing. We're able to do that with some of our crew members, just with simple hand waxing. Because of her, in that intricate texture, it requires a whole different type of approach. So she's really unique that way.
So I'll just move to approve the $6,000. It sounds like we need it. So if we're gonna keep her in our collection, we might as well take care of her.
A second. All in favor?
Aye.
Hi.
Aye.
Aye.
All right. Okay. Any other announcements? You have time to get a beer? Yeah, all right.
Well, do we want to check in and just see real quick, is everyone in town June 21st? I'm not sure after school's out who all might be flying the coop.
So I will not be in town. Oh, okay.
I will not be here on June 21st.
Anyone else?
All day.
will be here.
Will you be here?
I mean, yes now, but who knows?
I should be.
All right. We're adjourned. Or were we going to say something?
I was just going to say, that, yeah, it was really wonderful to serve on this commission. It's, maybe one day I'll come back when time is different. But I will say that if you guys need volunteers for artist selection panels, and feel free to call me up. And also, if there's, I'm happy to come and make public comment, and that sort of thing. So if there's stuff that you want more people to participate, let me know, and I can get word out and things like that. So feel free. I won't be a stranger. So
Thank
anyway,
you.
yeah,
It's been
it was
a pleasure
really
working with
really
you.
a joy, and have fun, you guys.